Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. Let's open up strong, shall we? KCD 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, is an absolute experience. And I'm about to sound like the bitter ex, so pardon me. But man, I could not help but as I was playing through this game, think of Bethesda Game Studios a lot. And so much of what I wanted them to evolve into as RPG developers, I think has really found a home here in KCD 2. Everything from the level of interaction to the gameplay freedom to the choice and consequence and branching storylines is found here. KCD 2 is a absolutely incredible RPG that puts you at the center of its world constantly, and just the ability to sometimes, I've had full-on sessions in this game just goofing around, save scumming, seeing how people react to the different things I do. This world is alive. But more than anything, the real star of this show is the massively improved storytelling. I always talk about how human, grounded dialogue for characters in video games always seems to be missing. We're chasing this fantastical sense of conversation that I've never been able to really wrap my head around. Characters talking in riddles and poems in worlds that make no sense, or writers attaching similes to sentences to bloat them and basically decorate an otherwise very bland sentence. The art of writing has been missed for so long, but I feel like KCD 2's combination of stellar acting and grounded character dialogue has formulated characters that you're going to care deeply about. I say that with the utmost confidence because when I played KCD 1, I'm not saying it was a poorly written game or anything along those lines, but I was kind of indifferent to the whole cast outside of Hans Capon, who I thought was kind of entertaining, but it was more in the mildly amusing sense. It wasn't like this lasting impression that I know others got from those characters. But in KCD 2, I think it's a whole other ball game. Henry and Hans in this game are so good together. You know, it starts a lot like a TV drama where it's just innocent shenanigans in the early goings. Like, what will this duo get themselves into? But as the plot gets more real and the stakes raise, you start to care about the fate of these two and those who are connected to them more and more. And I know I said this in my preview, but Hans Capon is just stellar in this game, dude. Like, this guy, there has not been a character in a game that has made me laugh out loud genuinely as many times as this guy has. It has probably been since like South Park Stick of Truth, which I know is like a ridiculous level of comedy, and that's why it got a lot of laughs out of me. But like, it is that level of like, who wrote this man? Give them a raise. Like, the acting, the dialogue, it's brilliant. This guy is the star of the show. But I know I've showered him with a lot of praise. I want to make sure that Henry of Skalitz also gets his due. Henry is a lot more of a personable character this time around. He has more dimensions than, hello, I'm Henry from Skalitz. It's much more than that. This is a much more personal quest for Henry, right? It is a lot about his father's sword, but as the story progresses, more dimensions to these different relationships and his desires and his quest for vengeance are really added to that, and I think give him the added layers that he was missing in the first game. KCD 2 also embraces a new, scarcely used narrative angle where parts of the game are seen through another character's eyes, such as Godwin, to help bridge parts of the narrative together, as well as emphasizing in a natural way the important players in this vast world full of many characters. And side quests, as I documented in my preview, impressed me so much because of the narrative web that they weave. For these nearby characters don't just exist in the same world space, but actually know each other, have schedules, have homes that you can break into and steal stuff from, and they feel in turn truly alive. So much so that if you're, like in the first game, caught wearing stuff you stole from their place, you'll get reported to the guards and get arrested. But more than anything, what I think will stick, at least with my audience, is the level of choice that KCD 2 brings to the forefront. Like, I'm praying to God, man, just please, game developers, study the quest design in this game, because I feel like Warhorse has laid it out in such a way, they almost make it look easy. Sometimes your quest step will be as simple as enter the castle. And you're like, okay, I just got to get in there. But Warhorse will provide you like 12 ways of getting into the castle. Do you want to steal a key? Do you want to sneak in, disguise your way in? Do you want to climb through the window in the top? Do you just want to fight your way in? And all of this allows you to embrace your curiosity and your creativity, and in a sense, your memory. Like, oh, I remember seeing, you know, a really angry chef from the kitchen outside the castle. Maybe I'll go talk to them because they were displeased with something happening in the castle, and they'll be more motivated to break me in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that'll lead to its own little story, or at times really the story that's truly told is, how you overcame the game's obstacles. But it always starts with that very basic, at least in premise, quest step. And the design of these quests is just so good because it's so freeform and open-ended, but not overwhelming. It doesn't pepper a ton of objectives on your map and say, go here, here, or here. It's more like, you just need to get in here, and there's a ton of ways you could do that. I wanted to shower the storytelling with praise to open things up, because this is my impression after not finishing the game. I have not finished KCD 2. And I know it's not like me to say, you know, final verdict or hear my final thoughts on a game when the credits have not rolled, particularly one with great storytelling thus far. But let me walk you through this journey a bit, because I think you'll see where my head ended up with this game and how truly unique it is at the end of it all. So as a reviewer myself, I'm usually juggling 2 to 3 games at a time, whether it's like personal play or review play or a retro game for Retro Rebound. I'm usually playing 2 to 3 games at any given time. While I got my KCD 2 review going later than most, I was still afforded 2 weeks to put time into the game. And since we last spoke, I've doubled my hours to about 40. And also since we last spoke, Avowed landed in my lap, which I'm now 13 hours into. Eventually, the natural desire to play KCD 2 kind of faded and went into this level of conflict of which do I pick up? But it's not because KCD 2 is bad, but because this experience taught me 2 things. First is that if you're thinking of the games you're playing as sort of food on your plate, then KCD 2 has to be the main course with no side dishes. So, you know, no appetizers, no 2 extra games, Matty. This is your main dish because it is a gigantic game. And this is something I was able to recently do with Metaphor ReFantazio after finishing Indiana Jones. I just settled into a groove. This was a 100+ hour game, my experience clocking in at 105. I just went right into that groove and played it all the way through. And it was a completely different experience for it because there was no side courses, no distractions. And there is a power to playing games on that level where it has all of your attention. So what I decided to do was slow down my KCD 2 playthrough in turn because I wanted to finish Avowed so that my plate was clear and then all of my attention would be put into this game completely. At the same time, though, I know many of you rely on my thoughts when these games are coming out, so I wanted to make sure I deliver. I understand if at the end this is a little underwhelming for you, but that was point 1, was making sure KCD 2 gets its undivided attention. Point 2 comes down to, and I think some of you won't like this, KCD 2 is a game that you kind of have to be in the mood for. The honest truth is, I probably could have had this game done at the time of embargo, but I also feel like I'd be doing the game a complete disservice. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is not a game to be rushed because each play session demands a lot out of you because it will never go as you planned. If I just wanted to say, I'm gonna beeline the main story, and the game would stop me a million times over because things are gonna pop up, distractions are gonna happen, the natural kind of inclination would be to get frustrated with the game because it's getting in the way of my goals. But much like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, that is where the fun lies in KCD. It is the distractions. It is the, hey, I'm firing up this game because I'm planning on beelining this main story, hitting a side quest in this town over here, you know, fixing my equipment, getting a drink while I'm out there, maybe lollygagging a little bit. And Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a game that will respect your time, but not your plans. But the game does ask a lot of your patience, which we already knew this about this game. But just to make it doubly clear for new fans going in there, there will be times you fire up the game after a long day of work, and your reward after a long day of work in real life is to shovel shit in KCD 2. Seriously. That, or you'll lug like sacks of dead bodies to a cart 3 times over, and it's very lulling and methodical, and maybe that doesn't light your fire. Kingdom Come Deliverance still very much is an acquired taste despite the amazing review scores it's getting right now, despite all of the hype it's getting right now. It is, much like a Baldur's Gate 3, an acquired taste that I think is becoming more broad, which is very exciting to see. But still, I just want people to be very aware of what the game asks from you, and that your plans are never going to go as you first laid them out. But what that meant for me is I made this decision to pivot full focus on Avowed, get that done with, and then go back to KCD 2, is that there were nights leading into that decision where, I'll give you an example, I was working on my video game and meetings went on long and work went on long, and it was 9:30 at night and I had like 2-3 hours to maybe sit down and game. And to be frank, the last thing I wanted to do was risk doing something very methodical and tedious in KCD. I just kind of wanted a little more shut off my brain, zen out, enjoy things, and have life come at me a little bit easier now, like a Marvel Rivals, for example. And then when my brain was clear, my schedule was clear, I would hop into KCD 2, and it was like, yes, I'm so excited to be here. What can I do? And my sessions grew, my enjoyment grew. And that is where I think the return on investment really compounds with this game. So it's just something you, the purchaser, should be aware of. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 isn't your typical black hole style game as the games industry describes it now. Your Roblox, your Fortnites, your Call of Duty Warzones, these kind of live service projects that will absorb your time, your attention, your money. That's usually where the black hole game is applied to, but KCD2 is a black hole on a whole other level. Way more content than the first game and way better at that. So simply put, if you're new, there's your warning. If you're a returning fan, you've likely already X'd out the video and ordered the game. So let's get more into the detailed part of things, breaking down what makes this game special beyond the improved storytelling I talked about earlier. I'd like to pick up with one of my criticisms that I left kind of hanging in my preview. That was about quest rewards. I talked about in that video how, man, I really wish this game gave me something for my time invested. I spent 3 hours with a side quest, going back and forth, hurting my character in the process, losing durability on my gear. Like, I paid the ultimate price for this quest, and I got 25 groschen out of it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's still, even to this point, very frustrating. But I realized something that I also mentioned in my preview applied here. KCD2 does a phenomenal job of breaking the mold that you've been placed in through AAA video game design. And I'm not trying to demonize the style of design that we see in AAA games nowadays. It's more so that there is a typical format, a pattern, and KCD2 is a title that will happily break that mold, but it starts to teach you where you should really be looking. And it might, in my case at least, take a little bit to realize the strengths of certain systems that I had previously critiqued. So in the case of KCD2, I was like, man, these quest rewards, because I'm always trained to think like end game quest rewards. But what this game really showed me is it's also a bit about the journey. Like, along the way, my strength went up, my sneak went up, I got amazing equipment out of it. And by the end of it, the quest reward does tie into your skills, which then you'll get perk points for, and so on. In a sense, this sort of design, both in quest and character building, exposes the industry in a very interesting way that I've not quite seen before. You know, to me, Baldur's Gate 3 was one thing. Like, I always thought Larian made very much amazing video games that people just finally realized existed. But in the case of KCD2, which wears the skin of AAA, like, it looks like a AAA game. You can already see the visuals. Absolutely stunning video game. It wears that skin well, but beneath that skin, the skeleton is all old school. It's all designed to be punishing and challenging, from its combat to its freedom to the dangers the world lays in front of you and the risk of progress being lost that you'll just have to adjust to. Kingdom Come Deliverance will always be an adjustment, but 2 especially so. There will be points where you're trying to fast travel, you're low on health, you get ambushed by some bandits, you're wearing heavy armor that's kind of broken down, so you're slow, you get chased down by these bandits, they kill you, you just lost half an hour of progress. So goes the way of KCD, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it. But again, that is where I started to respect the quest reward system more than my first 20 hours as I went into my 40th. It was a level of understanding, oh, like the character progression is part of the reward. And I really like how they think about that stuff. I would not have gotten this much better or this loot or whatever if I did not partake in this quest, but it's a little bit more about the journey than the destination in this game. And I'd like to say not every quest strikes that balance well, but most do by the point in my journey at least. And I absolutely adore KCD's scaling system because, well, I mean, it's basically Elder Scrolls. I mean, if you've played Skyrim or Oblivion, then you're familiar with what I like to call the level as you do system. So as you're sneaking around a lot, you're going to get better at that stuff. As you're brewing a lot of concoctions, you're going to get better at alchemy. Or there's really creative ways that they'll allow you to increase these skills. Like, hey, you're encumbered and you're carrying around a lot of weight. Your strength's going to go up. And to me, that's just brilliant. I love that sort of stuff. But there's also skills dedicated to drinking, like how much alcohol can you put down? And all of these come into use during the storytelling bits, whether it be, again, the gameplay options available at your disposal or just skill checking. And better yet, your equipment and what you're wearing and how clean you are play a factor too. I'm so used to in RPGs just wearing full-on armor sets. You know, the heaviest I can find, the most protection I can find, but because of that, you're a little less easy on the eyes in KCD2. So it's like when you approach someone and you try to tell them like, hey, I'm sorry, I did not mean to steal that 300 groschen necklace that if I sold over there would have made my life a lot easier. I didn't mean to steal that. And they're like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You're wearing medieval armor, dude. Like, look at you. Your skill checks are awful. But then when I'm in town, I switched to outfit number 2. I got my glasses on. I got a nice hat on. I'm wearing just nice, clean clothing that just came out of the wash, looking very spiffy. And so all of a sudden, all my persuasion stats are like through the roof, to the point where like my Henry in this game, like, dude, this guy gets around. This guy gets around like I'll just say 3 times in 20 hours. Holy smokes. And in fact, they canonically make Henry awful in bed in this game. It's amazing, but it doesn't change that this dude's got amazing charisma. Point being, though, is that everything from what you wear to your skills influence this game. It's so wonderful. Like, it's one of those games where as I sit here and talk about it, I get excited to sit down and play more. And I think that's when you know you've got something special. Its design is so well thought out, and it really is just putting a bow on what made KCD1 special. This is the gloves off moment. It reminds me a little bit of how the developers at Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja described their experience going from Neo 1 to Neo 2. Neo 1 I thought was pretty great, but Neo 2 was true excellence in the Souls-like genre. Neo 2 is what that team described as the gloves are off. We've kind of understood what we do right and what we could do better, and we're going to take that a mile further in this sequel, and you could feel that. It's the same thing here. You know the strengths of KCD. They're still going to remain here, but they've done everything to make what surrounds it better. It's more beautiful. It's bigger, for better or for worse, depending on your taste. I mean, this game, again, asks a lot of you, but the side quests are so much better. The main quest is way better. It really does feel like it's completely worth the investment. You just need to be ready to commit individually to this game. If you can do that, this is going to be some of the best money you spend in 2025. So those are my thoughts on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below on the game. Are you excited to play? Fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.